6 members present, therefore we have a quorum. We've all had an opportunity to review the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Excuse me, President Johnson, all 7 board members are present.
Thank you, Rosalind. All 7 board members are present, and so therefore we have a quorum. We've had an opportunity to review the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Luckett has moved. Mr. Figurs has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? There being none, the motion is approved. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Board members, we've had an opportunity to review the minutes in advance. Is there a motion to approve the November 17th, 2020 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Hilliard has moved. Dr. Luckett has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? There being none, the motion is approved. Just that quickly, we've gotten to the superintendent's report. Dr. Green.
Thank you. Thank you, President Johnson. We'll begin with our highlights from our instructional television team.
Is there sound?
I believe we're having.
The Jackson Public School District has announced plans for safely opening schools in January. The district has developed a smart restart plan for the transition to in-person and hybrid learning models in January 2021. All JPS scholars will have the option to continue real-time virtual instruction. Elementary scholars will have the option to return to in-person traditional instruction Monday through Friday, and middle and high school scholars will have the option to participate in a hybrid instructional program on alternating A and B days to allow for greater distancing and enhanced cleaning. JPS Special Programs applications can be completed online. Links to special program online applications will be added and removed when they close. Application windows for the following grade levels are as follows: middle school, November 1st through January 31st, 2021. High schools, January 20th through February 19th, 2021. Elementary enrollment closed on November 30th. JPS scholars can now get free ebooks and audiobooks from their school libraries. Access to the materials comes from the new Sora reading app, provided by Overdrive. The program's objective is to help increase reading for JPS scholars. Sora is a gateway to thousands of K-12 reading level ebooks and select audiobooks. Scholars can access the resources by clicking the Sora app icon on their JPS Clever page. McWillie Elementary School received $5,000 through the National PTA COVID-19 Community Relief Grant. The award, sponsored by TikTok, a popular social media video sharing app, will be used to purchase digital devices to aid in distance learning. Corporate sponsor Elite Energy Resources LLC donated an additional $2,000 toward the purchase of computers. The grant's aim is to help the McWillie PTA meet the urgent needs of the school community during the COVID-19 pandemic. The National PTA has distributed $1.25 million in COVID relief funds to over 150 PTAs across the country. The district's official mobile app is now available. Get access to news, the district directory, and much more. Download it on Google Play and the Apple App Store. For more information about Jackson Public Schools, please visit our website, visit us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Comcast channels 18 and 19.
As always, we want to thank our instructional television team for their work in developing those informative videos and just bringing to life some of the happenings around JPS land. So thank you, team. Appreciate you for that. We're asking that all of our parents, scholars, JPS team members, community members, everyone, please, 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 if you haven't already, go to download our JPS mobile app. Seriously, I'm asking you, if you're on the line right now and you haven't done so, stop right now, go to your app store and search for the Jackson Public Schools Mississippi, or MS, and you should see our logo there, and download the app to your phones. One of the things that I'd asked the team not long after I got here was to help us to really raise the level of awareness of our school, the access to information about our schools and our district, and all of that. So just really appreciate the work that our public relations team and Dr. Cormack and others have done to develop a tool that we're excited about. And you'll see and hear more about that, but the app is available. And using the app, or simply by going to our website at www.jackson.k12.ms.us, parents can make their instructional model selection for the spring of 2021. This will help us to do more of the planning that we know that we need to do for wherever we go, whatever happens in the spring. And obviously, we'll talk a bit more about our proposal to the board and ask for the board's action on that shortly. Board members, I'm excited about several items on tonight's meeting agenda, and not the least of which is the proposed change to our policy governing student representatives to the board. You've made it clear that you value student voice and that our district is better served when we include their perspectives in our decision making. And so I'm just very excited that our team has been thinking critically about how to engage scholars. We've listened to and have talked to scholars about their engagement across the district and decision making, but also just kind of sharing their perspectives as they continue their experiences with us here in Jackson Public Schools. So I am excited that we're bringing that policy to you, and looking forward to more discussion on that even at the next board meeting, where I believe we'll have some wonderful additions to hopefully to our mix and to our meetings. Board members, as we announced at the last meeting, we won a federal grant to support teacher and school leader effectiveness. And as I mentioned then, it's a 3.2 or over $3 million grant for over the course of 3 years. And And so we're excited about that, and in working with our partners at Insight Education Group, we'll continue implementation planning for that work. And I look forward to actually bringing more of the details here and sharing that with you so that you can better understand and our broader community can understand kind of the benefits of that funding and what we, how we believe it will serve us and support our work going forward. Well, in addition to that grant, we were informed just before Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving holiday, that Jackson Public Schools was awarded a grant from the Hewlett Foundation as well. This grant, totaling $1.5 million for about a year and a half, is the grant period, will support our efforts in the following key areas: student voice and engagement, and that's inclusive of exploring and presenting scholar perspectives on social and political issues, Black Lives Matter, some of the issues around the COVID-19 pandemic, on and on, racial disparities, all sorts of things. But as well, expanding their global mindedness. And so I'm very excited about this piece and getting our scholars connected with others around the country and others outside of the country. And perhaps even getting at some point, when outside opens back up, as one of my friends likes to say, perhaps even getting our scholars outside of our borders to see more of the world and expanding their thinking. So student voice and engagement is one of the key areas. Another is around educator pipeline. That's so licensure partnerships with higher ed and other organizations, recruitment efforts, a leadership academy, all the things that help us to identify and to further develop and support the development of worthy and willing and caring educators to do the important work that we have to do here in JPS. And the last big key issue is developing and expanding a virtual school option. And so totally redefining what it means to have alternative schooling. Right now, alternative schooling in JPS is relegated to those scholars who make bad choices and need a consequence or a place to learn as they serve out a consequence. But as we think about it, we know that not all scholars learn in the same way. And so we want to make sure that as we continue to develop and improve on programming here in Jackson Public Schools, that we're thinking critically about what our scholars need and how we can better position ourselves to meet those needs. And so we're just excited by the continued show of support from the Jackson community, as well as our national partners and funders. And we know that their support will help us to realize the strategic initiatives and commitments that we've stated in our strategic plan. And now, as many of you know, on November the 20th, we announced a proposal for the spring semester of this school year, and it's entitled a Smart Restart Plan. And we'll actually bring that as a formal item for your consideration in a few minutes, but I want to talk a little bit about it now and have a little bit of information to share. Although virtual learning would still be an option for all scholars, and I'll say that again, although virtual learning would remain an option for all of our scholars, but this plan and this proposal offers in-person and hybrid learning models. Again, back to the point that I made earlier, not all scholars learn in the same ways, not all families are similarly situated. And so we've got to make sure that we're as nimble and flexible to help to meet those needs. In our plan, school would resume virtually as scheduled for scholars on January the 5th of 2021. And those who opt to do so would return to in-person or a hybrid model on or after January the 19th. Again, that's in the plan. The district has built in a self-quarantine period following the winter holiday. Again, as I've said previously, we know that folks will typically travel and we'll have some gatherings and perhaps out shopping or eating and all sorts of things that just typically go on and around the holidays and their festivities. And so we want to build in some strategies to help to manage any potential spread during the holidays. And so a self-quarantine period would be built in for the first 2 weeks. That's in the plan. That would be built in for the first 2 weeks after we come back from the winter holiday. And since making the announcement of this proposal for the spring, our stakeholders have expressed concerns about students and about staff members returning to school buildings and just the cleanliness and our abilities to provide for PPE and disinfecting supplies and just all of those things. At this time, we'd like to share a couple of videos that illustrate the measures that we've taken and would take to ensure the safety and health of our scholars, our team members, and their families. And so there are a couple of videos that we'll now share with you back to back.
Greetings, Jackson Public School family. I am Amanda Thomas, Executive Director of Climate and Wellness, and I would like to remind you of some vital information about coronavirus. Coronavirus is abbreviated as COVID-19. CO stands for corona, vi for virus, and D for disease, identified in 2019. COVID-19 is a new disease in that it has not previously been seen in humans. There are many types of human coronaviruses that commonly cause mild upper respiratory tract illnesses. However, COVID-19 can cause severe respiratory symptoms with the potential to become deadly. There is currently no vaccine to prevent coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19, nor is there a cure. The best way to prevent illness is to avoid being exposed to this virus. The virus is thought to spread mainly from person to person, between people who are in close contact with one another, within about 6 feet, through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or talks. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby and inhaled into the lungs. COVID-19 can be spread by people who are not showing symptoms. Cases of reinfection with COVID-19 have been reported, but are rare. In order to slow down and stop the spread of the virus, everyone should wash your hands often. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, especially while in a public place, after blowing your nose, coughing, or sneezing. If soap and water are not readily available, use a hand sanitizer that contains at least 60% alcohol. Cover all surfaces of your hands and rub them together until they feel dry. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands. Avoid close contact. Inside your home, avoid close contact with people who are sick. Outside your home, put 6 feet of distance between yourself and people who don't live in your household. Remember that some people without symptoms may be able to spread the virus. Stay at least 6 feet, about 2 arms length from other people. Keeping distance from others is especially important for people who are at a higher risk of getting very sick. Cover your mouth and nose with a mask when around others. The mask is meant to protect other people in case you are infected. There is added protection when a mask is worn on all individuals. Everyone should wear a mask in public settings and when around people who don't live in your household, especially when other social distancing measures are difficult to maintain. Continue to keep about 6 feet between yourself and others. The mask is not a substitute for social distancing, and social distancing is not a substitute for mask wearing. Cover coughs and sneezes. Always cover your mouth and nose with a tissue when you cough or sneeze, or use the inside of your elbow, and begin proper hand washing immediately after. Clean and disinfect frequently touch surface daily. This includes tables, doorknobs, light switches, countertops, handles, desks, writing utensils or stationery, phones, keyboards, toilets, faucets, and sinks. Remember to also keep your glasses and face shields clean. Monitor your health daily. Be alert for symptoms. Watch for fever, cough, shortness of breath, or other symptoms of COVID-19. Take your temperature if symptoms develop. Follow all CDC guidance if symptoms develop. If symptoms persist, notify your immediate supervisor. Staff members who test positive for COVID-19 must follow the Jackson Public Schools COVID communications protocol. The protocols are to be completed within 24 hours of the reported positive COVID-19 case. The protocols are: number 1, interview the staff member to learn additional details. The immediate supervisor will conduct the interview to gather information such as the date of the positive test results, the last time the employee was in the office, school, or workplace, which fellow staff members the employee was in close contact with on last visit to the school, office, or workplace. Close contacts are defined as persons within 6 feet of another person for a minimum of 15 cumulative minutes over a 48-hour time period. This information is to be documented on the report directory and sent to Nurse Mallory Jones. Number 2, provide staff members with staff frequently asked questions and exposure notification guidance. Number 3, communicate with your appropriate assistant superintendent or chief so that they may draft a letter communicating with team members using the communication template. Number 4, send a signed letter to public engagement to inform impacted staff. To Sherwin Johnson at sherjohnson@jackson.k12.ms.us. Number 5, contact Nurse Jones to initiate contact tracing. Number 6, email Sandra Robinson, sarobinson@jackson.k12.ms.us, to inform the need for enhanced cleaning protocols. It is very important that these protocols are followed in a timely manner. Timely reporting activates contact tracing, which can help slow the spread of the virus and help protect you, your family, and your community. Curbing the spread and prevention measures can save someone's life. Public health officials are also able to better assist us with decision making as it relates to isolation, quarantines, and school closures. If you have questions or need additional support, please contact the Office of Climate and Wellness at 601-960-8705. And remember, be safe, respect yourself, respect others, and wear a mask.
I'm Joe Albright, the Chief Operations Officer for Jackson Public Schools. And what I really want to let you know about today is all of the equipment, all of the disinfectants, the personal protective equipment, everything that's needed to keep our staff and especially our scholars safe is in the warehouse at this point. And as you can see behind me, getting ready to be packaged and going out to our individual schools as what we call our starter kits. We are fully prepared for the start of school in January, and we are excited about our scholars being able to be back in school in a safe, healthy environment.
Hello, my name is Wanda Mabry, and I am the supervisor at Central Warehouse with Jackson Public School. And today I would like to tell you about the PPE supplies that we have stocked here in Central Warehouse, ready to supply the district with the essential needs that they're going to need to start school as the students return. We have the stands that they will need to come back into the building, the touchless hand stands for the sanitizer. It's a foam hand stand that you just put your hand under. We have the gallon sanitizer foam, the machines, 2 per building, and more on order. We also have the masks for the children as well as the masks for the adult, and these are the washable cloth masks. These are the washable adult masks. They are washable, they can be reused. These are the youth masks for the children, and they come 10 per pack. And we also have the disposable masks. So we are equipped with masks for children and adults.
Our custodians are trained in the use of all of this equipment and all of these disinfecting products. As a matter of fact, they are in a continuous training mode to make sure that the newer products are brought to them to keep them safe as they keep our staff and scholars safe.
And this is a disinfectant that the custodians will clean the buildings. It's designed to make sure that every building is cleaned.
This is a Neutra by Buckeye and Neutra Disinfectant. S23. It has been approved by the EPA. 1 drop. Shake and mix.
So we are equipped to clean our buildings, make sure that every day the custodians have cleaning supplies. You have your Pine Sol, you have your bleach, you have your cloths to clean with, you have your gloves. They are equipped to clean the buildings on a daily basis.
One of the new pieces of equipment that we are especially proud that we were able to bring into Jackson Public Schools is the electrostatic fogger. This particular piece of equipment provides fine particulate aerosolized that coats the surfaces of desks, chairs, floors. We use it on our buses to disinfect. It certainly speeds up the process, but at the same time, we can use disinfectants that are much more effective than the standard bleach and soap and water so that we can provide an even safer environment. We use these to do our high touch point disinfecting throughout the day and then our disinfecting at the end of the day as well. We have these in sufficient quantities that each school has these, and we have a number for our bus service personnel so that they can disinfect as we make rounds on the buses.
I have had my solution mixed at Neutra 23 with a quart bottle of water. I'm going to pour my solution in my electric fogger. I'm going to plug it ready and do a demonstration and disinfect a classroom.
Our custodians are trained in the use of all of this equipment and all of these disinfecting products. As a matter of fact, they are in a continuous training mode to make sure that the newer products are brought to them to keep them safe as they keep our staff and scholars safe.
I'm going to spray it at a 45-degree angle. Once you spray everything down that the hand could touch in the classroom, you let it sit for about 10 minutes and then you come back with a clean rag or cloth and wipe everything down. We pretty much try to do it every hour or every class change. I sprayed the restrooms down, everything that the hand can touch. And that's what you want to concentrate on.
It's very effective. And so it doesn't take a whole lot. We have to spray hallways, walls, and we pretty much try to spray our hallways every hour. Our main goal at Jackson Public School is, with the pandemic going on, as a head custodian, we want everyone to be safe, the students to be safe, faculty and staff to be safe, as well as the custodian. And our job is, we on the front line, Our job is to make sure that the facilities are safe and clean.
And we have our different type gloves. We have the nitro gloves, and we also have the black gloves, which are just a little bit heavy duty. And this is the Perel sanitizer, which is also a refill bottle, which you can refill the 8-ounce bottles with this.
Making sure that we have a safe, secure, healthy learning environment for our scholars. That is our primary concern at this time, as I know it is yours. And we are doing absolutely everything possible to make sure that we maintain that from the start of school all the way through graduation.
We have our digital thermometers. We are equipped to put them in every school, and they're the no-contact thermometers. Hand sanitizer in the individual personalized size, the 8-ounce bottles, designed to put on the teacher's desk if they need them. And we have our face shields designed for our youth so that the teachers can see their faces as they talk. Okay, and we also have the Pine Sol and the bleach, Clorox, the Dow liquid hand soap, the Sun Pine and the Pine Sol to use, and tissue, paper towels. We are prepared for our children to enter the buildings in a clean environment.
I want to assure you that the supplies are here. We're continuously reordering and increasing our supplies. There won't be shortages here. We will continue to do everything possible to make sure that we keep our students and staff safe. Thank you.
Again, board members and to those who are joining us virtually from the community or Team JPS, we just wanted to share a bit of this information. I know, there are lots of questions and wonderings about our supply inventory, some of the protocols that we'll utilize, and that sort of thing, and probably even more questions, and we're happy to answer those as we either now or as we get into the actual item, board meeting agenda item regarding the restart plan. But as it stands, wanted to share this information with you, and thank you, President Johnson. And that concludes my announcements, unless there are any questions or comments from you.
Board members, are there any questions or comments?
Thank you and good evening. I'll actually save my comments on the Smart Restart Plan for when we get to the board action item, but I did really want to give the team a shout out on the app. Our family has downloaded it and I found it incredibly useful. There's information that we've used, and again, both my wife and I, we've used it multiple times. We've also shared it with others. But again, I know there were a lot of team members that worked on this project, and really just wanted to publicly call it out as a major resource for us as a family with students in the district. So again, thanks to the team for all the hard work on the app.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and again, I appreciate all the team members who put all the good thinking into developing it. And my understanding is that they've got more on tap, more functionality will be coming over time. So glad to hear that folks are using it, and really want to keep encouraging all of our JPS community members to, it's not just for parents or scholars, for our team members and for community. If anyone who's interested in knowing more about what's going on in JPS, then please do download our app and see that as another way to be informed and to get notifications or what have
you. Thank you, Dr. Green. I just wanted to say congratulations on the $1.5 million grant from Hewlett. And I look forward to hearing more about this, this developing virtual plan, and because I think that's going to mean a lot for our community. And again, as always, thank you for all of your reporting. Next, board members, we have participants for public comment. Before we get started, I want to just set the expectation for those that are speaking. You will, of course, have 3 minutes for your comments. And the board believes that public comment is very important, and we will listen and consider your comments, but we will not respond at this time. If there's an issue that you have, there's always a proper protocol in which you can take it up with leadership or the administration. You're always welcome to email board members, and our email addresses can be found on the JPS website. The first person for public comment is Dr. Akimi Stout.
Hello. I hope you all can hear me.
Good evening, we can.
Okay. Greeting board members and all of the guests that are on the call this evening. I want to thank the superintendent for allowing me to be on the reopening of the schools committee. That's been an eye-opening experience, as well as one that has allowed me to have some input as to what I see from behalf of my membership and what is the community that I represent. But I wanted to bring to your attention some things that I'm hearing and I'm seeing and I haven't gotten a lot of response to. And I believe this is something that you all need to really focus on. Transparency and collaboration, matters. I really know that you all have tried more transparent. I really appreciate that you've done, but know that with the change of administration that, there has to be some level of trust with regards to.
You're breaking up.
Okay, I'm trying to in my home. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I'm just gonna stand still. How about that? Trust takes engagement, and what I have seen a lot of is I've heard a lot of conversation. I've heard a lot of communication for those on the upper level, but what I'm hearing that's coming in the office is not a lot of communication with those who truly matter that are on the front line, such as the custodians, but more so our educators. We really need to focus what I see, and from what I see from those for the constituents that I represent, that those school districts that have reopened and have been successful, those school districts involve the educators. They involve many educators from different platforms. And they had a labor management council that also helped to resolve problems and offer teachers a new platform to raise their concerns. But what I have not seen a lot of, I've heard the communications on the committees that I've been on, fortunate to be on, with regards to the superintendent allowed me to be on those committees, but I'm not hearing it trickle down. And I believe if the communication that we're getting in the meetings was communicated thoroughly with those who are working within the school district, then there would be better communication with the teachers and the administrators and the parents. And I am now a parent in Jackson Public Schools. And from looking at what I'm hearing from my children's school and the lack of communication, I really don't feel that a lot of teachers, from what I'm hearing, feel safe, feel that there's enough being done. From watching the videos that were presented today, there are a lot of things that are happening, but that needs to be communicated well to those who you're doing it for. You're doing it for the school district, students, you're doing it for the teachers. They need to know that these things are being done and how they will have access to certain things. There's a lot of, I can't think of the word right now, but there are a lot of them who don't feel comfortable with what's being put out there. They don't feel comfortable when it comes to coming back into school and not knowing what to expect, because the thought is these are things that are being said at the school board. The superintendent is saying this, those persons whom the superintendent has put in place are saying certain things, but yet when it comes down to the actual school district, communicating that to the teachers, or the administrators communicating that to the teachers, and it being the follow through, it's not there. So it seems as though it's being implemented, but where's the follow through? What happens when it gets to the teachers, when the teachers need to know how to access the PPE, when the teachers need to know what to tell, what to actually do when it comes to contact tracing. It can't just be one school knows.
Time is up.
Who's speaking? Hello?
That was Ms. Williams. She was telling you that your 3 minutes is up.
Thank you, Ms. Williams, but thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Stout. Next, we have Mr. Radican.
Yes, hello. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good evening, Dr. Green, Board President Johnson, and members of the board. My name is Chris Raddick, and I'm an organizer with the Jackson Federation of Teachers. And so after numerous questions and concerns from our union members about the JPS Smart Restart Plan, the Jackson Federation of Teachers sent our members a survey in order to better understand these concerns. And so our short survey consisted of 4 main questions and a comment section. These are the results from the 74 members who completed the survey over the past few days. Question 1, are you aware of the JPS Restart Plan? And 92% of those who responded are aware of the Restart Plan. Question 2, do you feel your school or worksite will be prepared to accept students in January? And so 8% of our respondents felt their school will be prepared, 36% felt their school will not be prepared, and then 29% felt unsure whether their school will be prepared or will not be prepared to start the school year, to start off in January rather. And then question number 3 is, which school model do you feel is the most applicable to students returning to school in January? We had 3% of our respondents who feel the traditional or on-site model is the most applicable. 19% of our respondents felt the hybrid model is most applicable, and 74% of our respondents feel the virtual model is most applicable. And then finally, question 4, do you feel your school or worksite will provide the necessary PPE equipment, social distancing, and sanitation measures to ensure student and staff safety? And we had 11% of our respondents who felt their school will provide these measures. 53% of respondents felt their school will not provide these measures, and 34% of our respondents were unsure whether they will or will be provided. And so I just wanted to share this feedback with the board members, and I'll be glad to send this information over for your consideration. Also, some of our members who responded to the survey are going to share various comments, some of the best comments that were sent in via the comment section. So they should be up next. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Radican. Next, we have Ms. Archie.
Hello, great afternoon, board members, superintendent. I want to say thank you for your time and your consideration. I serve as a stakeholder because I am from the community, a parent, and a fellow educator. I just want to kind of bring some things, just want to be transparent if so. I want to first thank you guys for the tremendous job that you've done in getting our students their devices. Virtual learning has been at an all-time high. Students are learning and teachers are learning as well. And the important thing is we are soaring forward and we're making educational leaps and bounds. So all is not lost with virtual learning. It really has helped our students tremendously, and they're still growing. I thank you all for being on the forefront of making a decision initially for us not to come back. Unfortunately, since that statement has been recanted and students are set to come back, it brings great concern to me. And I'm just going to read some things that I just want to make sure I say. Okay, moving students forward in this pandemic, it's been a bold statement on our half. However, the Restart Smart decision, it gives me concern, because when you bring students back traditionally, there's more movement in the building. Students have not been in the building, and we still have outbreaks of the pandemic in schools with students not there, just teachers. So imagine my scarce as we think about bringing students back amidst of that. If teachers are testing positive, then we won't have teachers in the building for the students. So then what do we do then if we have students in the building and we don't have teachers? My biggest concern is that, not that I don't want to go back to school, because schooling and teaching is the air that I breathe. It's the reason God created me. However, with the numbers raising higher and higher, what is the big push for students to come back in the midst of record-breaking deaths, record-breaking numbers? And it's just scary. And not just me. I speak on behalf of a lot of other teachers who are just scared and nervous because we don't know what to expect. And of course, we want to live. We want our students to live, and we want our community to live. All right. So with this in place, what is the big difference of us waiting until they get a vaccine, waiting until we're able to put something more solid in place? Because there's a lot of us who are still unsure of what's going on. We're still unsure of the videos. Of what's going on. We see the videos, but as far as
Ms. Archer, your time is up.
This is where you go to get it. So thank you for your time, and I want you to please consider it.
Thank you, Ms. Archie. Next we have Brianna Glenn. Ms. Glenn.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is having a safe and, joyous evening. I thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak and to just voice some concerns that we have as educators. One concern is that who will buy the hand sanitizer for students to use at the hand sanitizer stations in the classroom? A current teacher is at a site where she has not received PPE yet. Also, we feel that even with reduced class sizes and the current COVID-19 situation, it makes it unsafe for traditional instruction. Unless my understanding of CDC guidelines are incorrect, even the projected classroom attendance exceeds limits for the safe numbering of gatherings. I completely understand that parents want their children coming back to school, but we already have people getting infected in schools with just faculty and staff members in the building. The number of COVID-19 cases will increase expeditiously under the hybrid return plan. So as an educator, we just have some concerns on communication and how things are going to look, especially in class size numbers, how things are going to be spaced out with large class sizes, departmentalized, changing classes, et cetera, and so forth. But that's all I wanted to share. I thank you all for listening and presenting the information provided tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Glenn. Mr. McGee. Marshall McGee.
You can move on, President Johnson.
Okay, we'll come back. Taurus Bell.
Dr. Green, Superintendent Green, members of the board. First, I want to say thank you for the time and effort that was utilized to come up with this smart restart plan. I think that some things were very well thought out, but I am speaking on behalf of the Jackson Federation of Teachers Union Local number 4402, and I want to share some of the comments from the survey that Mr. Radican spoke about earlier. And I have two different quotes from two different employees that are members of the union, also employees of Jackson Public Schools. So I have employee A and employee B. And employee A, and I quote, "I am skeptical of opening the schools to our students because the increase of COVID-19 cases in Mississippi are rising. Many of our teachers and staff have underlying health conditions. How can we ensure our survival?" And employee B, and I quote, "I had COVID-19 and my energy levels and breathing are still not back to normal. The residual coughing is just as bad now. and I am scared about contracting the virus again. I have been with Jackson Public Schools for 21 years. This year, I am working with a new principal who is threatening my job and what I love to do, which is working with children. So I want you to take all of these comments into consideration, board members and Dr. Green, when it comes time to do action or on the approval or the non-approval of the Smart Restart Plan. So please take all of these employees' concerns into heavy consideration. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Marshall McGee? Okay, we have then Renee Westmore. Ms. Westmore?
Sorry, President Johnson, she didn't show up either.
Okay. Is that it, Rosalind?
That does conclude the public participation.
Thank you all for participating in public comment. Like I said before, the board will take your comments into consideration. The next item on the agenda is information items only. Attorney Robinson.
Good evening, Board Chair Johnson, Vice Chair Sevac, board members, and all who serve JPS. The Office of the General Counsel recommends that the Jackson Public Schools Board of Trustees adopts its recommendations related to either the creation, amendment, and/or removal of various board policies to include the following. Because there are multiple policies involved, I will take questions at the end of each policy that I review. The first policy is BHAA, student representatives to the Jackson Public School Board of Trustees. This is an amendment to the policy. The Office of the General Counsel, Assistant Superintendent Marshall Thomas, and Chief of Staff recommend that the Jackson Public School Board of Trustees adopt the proposed amendments to Board Policy BHAA, which provides high school students selected in accordance with the provisions of the policy the opportunity to serve as non-voting members of the JPS board. I will entertain any questions related to BHAA at this time.
Okay, we do have a question. Let me just mute.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson.
You went mute.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. First of all, I'm very excited that this policy is being renewed. And I know that you also shared some additional information about the upcoming board meetings where student board representatives will actually be attending the meeting. Could you provide a little bit of background on the plans for engaging our student representatives over the next meetings and then on into the next terms, second semester?
I'm going to invite Assistant Superintendent Marshall Thomas to comment on that question.
Good evening, Dr. Sevac. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks, Ms. Marshall Thomas.
Great, great. So what we have planned, Dr. Sevac, is to continue our student representatives' participation just as we normally would have, with adjustments as far as their voluntary participation via Zoom or in person at our regular board meetings. We are also asking for the board members to meet with their assigned student representative at least for about 5 minutes prior to each board meeting to just review the board agenda, to assist the students with any questions that they may have about the agenda items, provide any clarifications that they may have, also to discuss some pending or upcoming policy changes, and just to provide an opportunity for student voice. And as a representative of their school, to also just have some feedback from the students and the student body. We will also have the students to participate and do their 3-minute presentations. So we'll have 2 student board representatives per meeting to provide a 3-minute presentation. Our board members, our student representative board members will be paired with principal interns that we have in our district that will serve as a coach for them to work on presentation style, etiquette, all of those things to ensure that their presentations are done in a professional manner, and also to provide a guide for them as well. And so we have somewhat of a protocol that we'll follow for the presentations. We'll have specific questions to just make sure that the guidelines are very clear and succinct for all of the schools. And, you know, they just don't go on a tangent and just start talking about things that, that are not within the board's control.
That's great. Thank you very much. Again, very excited to.
You are welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Assistant Superintendent Marshall Thomas. Are there any other questions related to Board Policy BHAA?
Have we thought about ways that we will ensure that our students will be able to participate on Tuesday nights? I mentioned this in a policy committee meeting before. A number of our student leaders have other commitments on Tuesday nights. That happens to be a sport night, for instance, basketball and soccer and other things like that happen. So I'm just wondering if we put some thought into that.
We have, and with the help of Ms. Williams, we are assigning our students for their presentations on those Tuesday nights that that they will be available. And we're going to try to work around their schedules. And some of them work, actually have jobs that they work in the evenings, just to work around their schedules to ensure that they can participate during those times. And also just ensuring that our students are understand the opportunities and the importance of participating in the regular board meetings.
Great, thanks.
Board members, are there any other questions or comments? Board members, there has been a mistake in terms of the public comment, and we skipped someone, so I'm going to go back so that we can get them. It's someone representing the P16 Council. Jeff Stafford.
Good evening, Dr. Green, school board members. Dr. Green, I want to say to you that you are in an unenviable task.
Can you speak up for us, please? So he can hear you.
Dr. Green, we thank you for your leadership. You are in an unenviable task at this moment. We know, I know from the position that I served in various places in the community, as well as the JPS P16 Council, that sometimes there are decisions and things you have to make that are not often looked well at. So I want to start my comments by uplifting you and let you know that you have the P16 support and much of the community support. We have sent an email to the school board outlining a few concerns, and you have heard many of them already voiced, so I won't rehash those. We have also completed a survey with about 85 participants who have completed that survey, asking some of the similar questions from Jackson Federation of Teachers as well as others. Many people have concerns and are looking for responses and answers. What I want to spend the remainder of my time, I won't even hash through many of those questions that we asked, but it was a short, simple survey. But obviously the overwhelming majority wanted to choose virtual options. They have concerns and questions about the plan. But what we would like to do is we would like to invite members of the school board as well as your staff, and some of your staff have already attended some of our P16 Council meetings. Our next meeting will be December 17th at 6 o'clock via Zoom. I would definitely like to get you an invite to that meeting so you can speak to those concerns, as I'm sure you will speak more to that as you all get ready to take action on those items today. I just wanted to chime in and make sure that as the president of the P16 Council, that our voices were actually heard in this meeting, because I don't want to get any emails or text messages saying, I thought you were going to speak. But you have our email, and we will be in contact with you subsequent to this board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, board members, we are back at information items only. We're on item B. Ms. Franklin.
We still have, excuse me, Board Chair Johnson, we still have
we're not
some
done with
additional policies.
Okay, sorry about that. We're back to you, Ms. Robinson. Thank you for your indulgence.
Excuse me. Thank you. So I'm going to refer to the next set of policies, GACN/JCP, and the accompanying procedures as the sexual harassment policies and procedures. The Office of the General Counsel recommends that the Board of Trustees adopt the proposed amendments to board policies GACN/JCP and their accompanying procedures titled GACN-P and JCP-P. The documents reflect the mandatory changes as articulated by the U.S. Department of Education on May the 6th, 2020, in a news release related to Title IX regulations. Key provisions of the DOE's new Title IX regulations include, but are not limited to, 1, defining sexual harassment to include sexual assault, dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking as unlawful discrimination on the basis of sex, providing a consistent, legally sound framework on which survivors, the accused, and the schools can rely, requiring schools to offer clear, accessible options for any person to report sexual harassment, empowering survivors to make decisions about how a school responds to incidents of sexual harassment, protecting K-12 students by requiring elementary and secondary schools to respond promptly when any school employee has notice of sexual harassment, shielding survivors from having to come face-to-face with the accused during a hearing and from answering questions posed personally by the accused, requiring schools to select one of 2 standards of evidence. For purposes of the standards of evidence, the district has selected the preponderance of the evidence standard, which means, roughly stated, more likely than not, and also requiring schools to offer an equal right of appeal for both parties to a Title IX proceeding. One of the questions that was raised related to the policy and procedures related to the necessity of including procedures as a part of this amendment. According to the U.S. Department of Education, grievance procedures related to sexual harassment must be included in the policy amendment for all LEAs that are implementing the Title IX regulations. I will pause and take questions related to the sexual harassment policies and procedures.
Are there any questions, board members, or comments?
The final policy amendment relates to JCFAA. The Office of the General Counsel recommends that the Board of Trustees adopt the proposed amendment to this board policy to reflect the inclusion of language that's required pursuant to Mississippi law as articulated by the MSBA during its recent policy conference. As an informational point, the PPRA is the Protection of Pupil Rights Act, and it's a federal law that affords certain rights to the parents of minor students with regards to surveys that ask questions of a personal nature. I'm happy to entertain any questions related to this policy amendment as well.
Board members, any questions or comments?
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. And now, Ms. Franklin.
Good evening, President Johnson, board members, Dr. Green, JPS family, and guests. I'm delighted to come before you this evening to present the resolution to change the name of Lee Elementary School. And before I present that resolution, I do want to acknowledge the members of the school renaming committee. If they are on the Zoom, they may just want to wave. So we had three staff members, and of course the renaming committee led by our fearless leader, Dr. Cynthia Veals, and I think she's with us this evening. We had three staff members: Phyllis Sanders, Shalithia Claiborne, and Shirley Corse. Two parents, Tiffany Jones and Tamisa Bronson. Two community members, Ebony Jones and Cynthia Buchanan. We also, of course, had our board member, none other than Dr. Robert Luckett. And then we had two student participants as well, Marcel Flowers and Amaris Chapman. So without further ado, once again, it's my privilege and honor to present to you the resolution to rename Lee Elementary. Today's date, of course, is December 1st, 2020. Whereas in 2017, the Jackson Public Schools Board of Trustees authorized the renaming of district properties named for Confederate figures and empowered the administration to design deliberative and inclusive processes to propose new school names. Whereas Lee Elementary is currently named for Confederate General Robert E. Lee. Whereas the administration assembled a school renaming committee, which included the school's board member, principal, teachers, parents, and other community stakeholders. Whereas the school renaming committee adopted criteria for the nomination of potential namesakes to include a deceased individual with strong ties to the local community who made positive strides in education or other endeavors and is relevant to the student body. Whereas the student body engaged in meaningful lessons and activities to learn about each of three selected finalists and have elected Doctors Aaron and Ollie Shirley as the school's new namesakes. Whereas Dr. Aaron Shirley, a native Mississippian, became the first African-American learner at the University of Mississippi Medical Center when he entered the residency program in 1965. Whereas Dr. Aaron Shirley was a physician, associate professor of pediatrics at the University of Mississippi Medical Center, activist and local hero in Jackson, Mississippi. Whereas Dr. Aaron Shirley served as chairman of the board of the Jackson Medical Mall Foundation. Whereas Dr. Ollie Shirley was a long-serving member on the Jackson Public Schools Board of Trustees, including serving as president of the board. Whereas Dr. Ollie Shirley assisted in a major school board referendum that allowed Jackson Public Schools to expand and improve its facilities. Whereas Dr. Ollie Shirley was instrumental in the expansion of Mississippi Educational Television and securing Sesame Street in its lineup, despite vociferous initial opposition because of its ethnically diverse cast of adults and children. Now, therefore, be it resolved that in recognition of the meritorious contributions of Doctors Aaron and Ollie Shirley, that Lee Elementary School be renamed Shirley Elementary School. Thank you. And I failed to, we may have at least one of their children with us tonight. Aaron, are you on the call? Okay, thank you so much for being here for this exciting announcement. And Aaron also has a brother, Terrence Shirley, as well. So thank you for your time, board members. And again, as you can tell by the grin on my face, I'm just so excited about this resolution.
I think I also saw Crystal Porter on the call as well. Thank you, Ms. Franklin. I would like to add how excited I am about this, having known both of the honorees. And I'm excited not only because of that, but because they are pillars of our community, but they're also people that our children can model themselves after. So this is wonderful. Board members, are there any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to just say that it was a great pleasure to watch this process move forward. The democratic nature of it, the community involvement, the school involvement, and the fact that the children learned about the nominees and that the children at the school voted and chose the namesakes for their schools I think that's incredibly powerful and is exactly what we should be doing in terms of the entire debate around monuments, memorials, how we want to represent our community in the sites that have such importance to us. And so it was a great pleasure to watch and to be a small part of. And so I'm so excited for it. And what a great day for us.
Any other comments, board members? All right, then we will move on to information item only, item C. Dr. Grigsby.
Good evening, Board President Johnson, board members, Dr. Green, and the JPS family. It is my pleasure to come before you once again, this is school number 3, to share a resolution renaming a JPS school. I had the honor of serving as a district liaison for the Power APAC School Renaming Committee, and many of them are present here tonight. They are Dr. Keisha Rankin, principal, Dr. Robert Luckett, JPS board member, Ashley Rogers, 4th grade teacher, Bruce Golden, librarian, Portia Davis, music piano teacher, Veronica Gates, PTA president, Joy Parikh, parent community member, Carrie Perez, parent, Sarah Burris, she was our recorder, and 2 students, a 4th grade student, McNeil Martin, and 5th grade student, Lauren Smith. I want to thank them all so much for their time, their commitment, and their dedication to being a part of this history-making process. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas in 2017, the Jackson Public School Board of Trustees authorized the renaming of district properties named for Confederate figures and empowered the administration to design deliberative and inclusive processes to propose new school names. Whereas Power Academic and Performing Arts Complex is currently named for Confederate Colonel John Logan Power. Whereas the administration assembled a school renaming committee, which included the school board member, principal, teachers, parents, students, and other community stakeholders. Whereas the school renaming committee adopted criteria for the nomination of potential namesakes to include a deceased individual with a strong connection to Mississippi, commitment to the academic and performing and visual arts, mission of the school, and relevance to the student body. Whereas the student body engaged in meaningful lessons and activities to learn about each of the 3 selected finalists and have selected Ida B. Wells as the school's new namesake. Whereas Ida B. Wells was born into slavery in Holly Springs, Mississippi on July 16, 1862. Whereas Ida B. Wells received her early education at Shaw University, now Russ College, and began her career as a teacher to recently emancipated African American. Whereas Ida B. Wells gained renown as a journalist and social reformer for her advocacy to abolish lynching. Whereas Ida B. Wells is recognized as a co-founder of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and contributed to the development of other civil rights organizations. Whereas Ida B. Wells created the first African-American kindergarten program in her community and championed women's suffrage. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Power APAC Elementary be named to Ida B. Wells APAC Elementary. And I would be remiss, you all, if I did not mention the 2 individuals who made the initial appeal to the board on the name changes years ago. And they are here with us tonight. And that's our 11th grader, Farah Jasinski from Murrah, and her mom, Ursula Hendrick. So just want to thank them so very much for being a part of tonight's information item. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Grigsby. Again, this is absolutely wonderful. Board members, are there any comments?
Not entirely sure, other than the fact that these two schools fell in my ward, that I had the pleasure of being a part of, like, the most fun process of being a school board member over the past 3 years. But it was my great pleasure to be a part of this group too, and to watch them work. And again, just echo, this was driven by the kids, and the final decision. And what a wonderful thing. And I said to the committee when we met that Ida B. Wells is my favorite American of all time, and the fact that we're naming a school in Jackson after this Mississippian, that's a pretty fabulous thing.
Any other comments, board members?
Madam President, I would just like to add my amen to all that has been said. This is such a powerful moment. You know, I was thinking that were it not for this process, many of the students perhaps would never know anything about these individuals. And to have this as such an outstanding teaching moment is just beyond words. So thank you so very much.
Any other comments, board members? It's nice to do something so wonderful during this pandemic. So that's great.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to move on to information item only D. Mr. Salgado.
Good evening, President Johnson, members of the board, Dr. Green, community members, and the entire JPS family. It is with great honor that I am presenting this information item that represents an agreement between the College of Education and Human Development at Delta State University and Jackson Public Schools. The purpose of this memorandum of understanding is to provide student teaching internship in the district during the spring semester of 2021. This agreement will be used to provide Delta State University and students the opportunity for hands-on teaching, learning, and practical classroom and virtual classroom due to COVID-19 experiences with the district teacher. Jackson Public School District agrees to accept students from the university upon recommendation of the Director of Teacher Education and other authorized personnel. Upon acceptance, the district agrees to assign the teacher candidates to cooperating teachers and supervising teachers as mentors teachers during their clinical experience to the extent that qualified teachers meet the following requirements. This is why we agree at Jackson Public Schools to make available the service of competent cooperating teachers who have a valid Mississippi teaching license in the same licensure area in which their interns is seeking licensure. They must have a minimum of 3 years of experience in the classroom. They must be in the classroom for at least a period of 12 weeks, and teachers in training will participate in all PD and other district academic initiatives. Teachers agree to evaluate these teachers in training 3 times a semester. Lastly, teachers in Jackson will receive a $50 stipend and 1 credit for any course they may wish to enroll at Delta State University. I support this agreement as it provides the districts with a new pool of candidate teachers who have been trained by our own staff and have participated in our professional development, thus creating in them a culture that we require. This is, and the ability for us to create more meaningful partnership with schools and universities. I support this item. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Salgado. Are there any questions, board members? Questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Salgado.
Thank you.
Next, we have information action items. Dr. Green. Oh, hold on.
You ready?
Want me to use my volume too? Okay. Okay. Can you all hear me? All right. President Johnson, board members, to those who are gathered here on the virtual meeting this evening, come before you tonight to present the district's Smart Restart Plan. And so I want to beg your indulgence as I move through several talking points that we have related to this plan. So as always, we like to keep in front of us our vision and mission statements. As we like to remind ourselves, these are not just words that sound good and that we came up with more than, well, really nearly 2 years ago, but they're words that are meant to guide our actions and our thinking and our values and just kind of what we're about as an organization, even in the toughest of times. And so we just important for us to keep these in front.
You need to work. We gotta do something about them dogs.
Want to please remind everyone, if you're not on mute, please do mute your lines. Thank you. Glad everyone's on the line. Just please mute your line. Okay, so Smart Restart. Why do we think it's time for a smart restart? Well, there are a couple of, or several reasons actually. And so I want to talk through these for just a few minutes. The first, which is our parents and families need and deserve flexibility. As you'll recall, board members, over the summer and into the fall, or as we were approaching the fall, one of the things in our planning efforts that we did was to identify a set of what we called non-negotiables. And key among those non-negotiables was allowing for a level of choice and flexibility for our families and for scholars. Well, as we approached the school year, and we continue to get all of the messages and data and concerns and fears and just all of the things that we were all experiencing in our lives, let alone in our workspace and in the school district, we decided to pivot against that and frankly and effectively not allow for flexibility. But that need didn't go away. And so we want to, again, just kind of remind ourselves that this is something that we said parents needed, parents deserved, and so we want to come back around to that. The second point here is that virtual learning actually does work for some scholars. I've heard and I've seen evidence in our data. You all recall some of the data that we shared of benchmark assessments and some of the anecdotal reports that we've gotten from some of our scholars and parents, from even some of our staff, our educators. Perhaps some of you board members have had your own experiences or talked with folks about their experiences. And that virtual learning mode, it is working for many of our scholars, and I'm excited about that. And kind of going back to earlier point that I made about the projects that we've been funded to do, we're looking forward to continue to build on our virtual program. The reality is it's not working for all. And it's not working for all simply because not everyone's connected. That's a very real issue that we're excited that we now have all of the devices or enough devices for all of the scholars in our district. That's awesome, and we're excited about that. And that will allow us to utilize technology in ways that are more seamless in instruction for our scholars. But the reality is, even some of those young people who are connected and have been plugged in daily or to some degree with their teachers, they're struggling in this virtual environment. And struggling academically, struggling in terms of their own social and emotional needs, perhaps some mental and and struggles and anxieties and all those sorts of things. So again, we've seen plenty evidence that it's working for some, but not for all. Early learners, and we've talked about this a bit before, and we'll share a little more information about it in a moment, but our early learners require effective hands-on instruction to allow them to develop the foundational skills that they need for later success. More and more, I do hope that in this district and in this community that there's shared belief and consensus around the value of early childhood education. It's why we've expanded the number of seats in early childhood, and why we're continuing to expand on programming and all those things, and identify and allocate funding for early childhood education. It's not just nice to have. It sets our young people apart. And those who don't have access to quality early childhood education are steps behind their peers as they move further in school. And that's simply hard to do, hard to provide to scholars who aren't readers in a virtual setting. It's hard to provide that kind of hand over hand support, so to speak, for young people who don't read. We've learned a lot of lessons as we've run and as we've implemented our virtual program over certainly over the last few months, over the first quarter of this school year, but even experiences back in the spring and over the summer. Lots of lessons simply around infrastructure and connectivity and some of the tools, and you'll see a little later in our agenda, in your agenda, that bringing to you some additional tools that we believe will help us with engaging scholars virtually. So lots of lessons that we've learned in-house, developed capacities, some things that we've kind of facilitated for our teachers and school leaders, and plenty other things that our teachers and school leaders and other educators that they just took on their own because they wanted to know more. They wanted to sharpen their sword and become more expert at this work. And I believe we heard from some of the educators earlier attesting to this. Folks are definitely building their skill levels around virtual learning. And so that's not a sunk cost. Right? That's information and that's skill and that's capacity that we now have in our district and will continue to build upon and to use over time. As well, we've learned lessons from our peers who have implemented virtual and in-person or hybrid instruction. Some of the things that they've done that have allowed them to carry forward with their instruction and to meet the varied needs of their families and their scholars. Certainly some lessons about communication and ways to communicate with families, transparency around COVID cases and some of the pivots that they've had to make and all those sorts of things. But again, lessons have been learned over the past several months that allow us and prepare us for the work that we believe is lying ahead of us. The availability of technology to support one-to-one, one device per scholar is actually pretty important, even as we consider this and as we bring to you in this proposal for in-person and hybrid options for families. We will continue to utilize technology even in person. And for those scholars and those families who believe that they are better suited to learn virtually, we've got the technology to do that. We've got the technology to support that. And so there's a true opportunity for families to take advantage of the options. It's not just an option in name, but we don't have the technology to support it. So it's important in that way. Additionally, there's been lots made of and lots of discussion nationally for sure about social and emotional needs for our scholars. and some of the anxieties that they carry and tension and stresses that they carry around academics, but also just around not having access to and interactions with their peers in person. And there are some strategies that we're able to implement within group settings, even in smaller group settings in person, that allow us to start to address some of those needs. And frankly, our ability as educators to identify some of the needs and some of the concerns and children or scholars who might be a little off on a particular day because they're feeling whatever they're feeling. Our ability to acknowledge that and to see that and to do something about it is heightened if we're in closer proximity. And the last point that we'll make here is just around the indications of limited spread of COVID-19 in schools. So we've heard comments previously, and there's lots of discussion just around the community spread, and that's real. I'm not bucking against that. We acknowledge that this is not, this doesn't feel like or sound like the opportune time to discuss restarting school in person or with the hybrid model. First off, let me note that we're, with the size of our district and understanding the complexity of any shifts that would be considered here, we have to give folks a notice. And we have to have notice and time for us to continue our planning and to work with all of the members of our team. And so I do want to name that there's some method to the madness. We didn't wait until closer to the start of the second semester to say, hey, we think we want to re-implement the in-person or hybrid models. We're giving ourselves some time, and we know that things could continue to get worse. They might continue, or we might see a reduction in cases or infection rates and hospitalizations and all of that. But in that time, we will continue to monitor those cases. But the point that we're making here is one of the things that we're learning as we listen to some of the health directors and officials, both locally in our state and across the country, is that while cases are identified in schools, the actual spread of those cases is happening in homes. It's happening in communities. It's happening, in other places where folks go. And so that's going to be really important as we can continue to consider this proposal that we're bringing before you, board members. We can go to the next slide. The need for in-person option or options, there are a couple of things that I want to lift up now. The first is around average daily attendance. We averaged around 91, 92% over the last couple of years, average daily attendance. And that's not great. But the fact that we are now down about 13 percentage points from that is alarming. And I don't know for sure that it's all about this reality that we're living in right now, this pandemic, and the challenges of living our lives in the pandemic and going about the work that we have to do as adults, or the work that our scholars have to do and engaging in school. But this is a major issue for us. It's a major issue for us for several reasons, not the least of which is the academic performance that's hindered if scholars are not in school every day. But add to that, this other issue that I mentioned a minute ago, we don't have eyes on our scholars. And so we don't have the best opportunities to check their wellness and to check in with them to make sure that they're getting their basic needs met. So this average daily attendance is not just about a compliance thing or report that we send in to the state. It's one of the ways that we ensure that our scholars get what they need. And it's important. And the fact that we're down a good 13% from where we were last year or the year before at this time is alarming. Also, board members, of the 1,600 or so pre-K and kindergarten scholars who were screened this year, over 1,000 of them. So about 68% of them were identified as needing an academic intervention. Again, the needs are there, and our ability, anyone's ability to meet those needs, and especially of our youngest scholars, in a space where they're not in closer proximity, is greatly hampered. Board members, well, let me share another couple of things with you. So one of the things, and I mentioned this earlier, and I wanted to just share some of the words from some of the health officials. So I want to bring those into the room and into the conversation. We can advance. The CDC director, Robert Redfield, had this to say with regard to schools. The truth is, for kids K-12, one of the safest places they can be, from our perspective, is to remain in school. And it's really important that we follow the data, making sure we don't make emotional decisions about what to close and what not to close, Redfield said earlier in November. I'm here to say clearly, the data strongly supports that K-12 schools, as well as institutes of higher learning, really are not where we're having our challenges with regard to COVID-19. The next quote. From Dr. Ashish Jha, and we've probably seen his name or heard from him in many of the reports over the last several months. He's a dean at Brown University and a global health expert. The evidence here is really clear, and the evidence is that schools should be open, at least K-12. There's very little data saying there's any spread happening in those schools. And then the next piece from the NPR, National Public Radio. Okay, here we are. That research finds few links between schools and COVID-19 cases. New research has found few links between in-person K-12 schooling and COVID-19 case rates. There is not a consistent pattern, one of the authors of the study has written. So this information is out there. Obviously there's been a lot, we've all been kind of crammed with lots of messages around the increased rates and the danger of going outside of your homes and all of these things. And I am in no way diminishing any of that. I readily recognize that this is a challenge for all of us. It's a real challenge for all of us. But we're having this conversation today, board members, because our current model of instruction is not working for all students. Equity is the first of our 6 core values. We claim that all means all, and that we're serving all of our scholars. Unfortunately, what we're doing right now, one, it doesn't provide for the flexibility that parents need, but it also is not acknowledging and meeting the needs of every scholar in our schools. As I've said before, we will continue to monitor data. We will continue to share our thinking about kind of where we are in the community and where we are in our readiness to start based on this plan. But I want to talk about the plan in particular right now in more specificity. So first off, I want to just name for folks that built into this plan is a quarantine period. We know that families will likely have some kind of festivities or gatherings or what have you. They'll likely be eating or inviting others over to eat or going out to eat, out shopping, holiday parties, whatever. There are things that happen, traveling, things that happen over the holidays, and we just acknowledge that, right? As much as we want to encourage folks to make smart choices and think about the community and others that they might come in contact with, we're acknowledging that those things will happen. And so we're building into our proposal here, our plan, a 2-week window right after the holidays where our staff members and where scholars remain virtual. That actually carries us up to the start of the second semester. So it's convenient in that way, but it also just allows, if there's any symptomology, that's the word, any symptoms that are identified during that time, for that to be addressed and for folks to make smart decisions about that. In the plan, we're offering two options to families. One, again, want to stress, this virtual model works for some scholars and for some families. And so if it does, absolutely want to continue to offer that to those families and those scholars. Option two, if elementary, they would either choose the virtual option, the first, or option two, in-person or traditional model. And for secondary, that's middle school and high school, they would either choose option one, the virtual model, or option two, the hybrid model. And so I'll share a little bit more about those models now. First off, with the virtual learning option, we've asked that families make their selection if they are electing to continue with virtual learning. And so I want to pause there for just a moment and share a little data with you. First off, I'm amazed at the response that we've gotten from our families. Amazed. You know, as I've shared before, we've been a little frustrated in times past about enrollment processes and you know, response to that and response to some of the other surveys that we've done, even surveys we've done earlier in the year with regard to COVID. We've gotten, as of, I think it was maybe 5 or so o'clock or maybe 4 o'clock this afternoon, we've received over 13,000 responses from our families. Over 13,000 responses. And the breakdown is as such. For elementary, for those who are looking for a virtual or for a traditional model, so in-person instruction, about 48%. And so that means 52% are selecting and saying they need and want to continue with virtual. So more than half, a little more than half for virtual. For our secondary scholars, again, that's middle school and high school. For our secondary scholars, those who are wanting the hybrid model, about 42%. So that means about 58% would elect the virtual model. Again, it's working for a lot of folks. And I'm actually encouraged by these numbers. One, it's not all of our scholars, but it's the majority of our scholars. And it's a strong indication of where folks are falling out and how how things would look with regard to spacing and all of that in school. So with the virtual learning option, we're asking our families to make a decision and make that selection in our system, use our app or go to our website and do that by today. It just helps our planning and helps us immensely. We're working with our staff members to identify those who have some health concerns or other conditions that for which they need an accommodation or simply would be interested in continuing to teach remotely. And so our effort would be to develop a district level teacher teams to support perhaps by region, north, south. It really depends on the numbers as they continue to shake out of scholars who would need a virtual model, and therefore the number of teachers that we need and in different subjects and grade levels in that we need. But that work is already underway. Our team members are already identifying some of their preferences and some of their needs. So we're continuing to do that puzzle making work. Scholars must adhere to the same attendance and academic and behavioral expectations as if they were in person. And so, you know, for many scholars, as I've heard it from colleagues and from peers, many of our scholars and families had a rude awakening in the first term, where they had not completed assignments or turned assignments in or were not attending regularly. And so we had some really difficult conversations with scholars and with families with regard to that. Again, for some of them, it's just been a struggle. And perhaps for some others, they've just not taken it as seriously because it's very different. And I get to do my schoolwork with pajama bottoms on. But the reality is we have to hold them to high standards with regard to attendance and academic and behavioral expectations. And so we will with that. If concerns do arise, if a family selects or elects to continue in the virtual mode and concerns arise, whether it's with their attendance or with their academic performance or any of that, we will have to kind of circle back around with parents to have discussions with them as to whether or not scholars should remain in the virtual mode. Again, at the end of the day, this isn't about Eric Green's choice for an individual family, but what we together as partners with families, what we determine as the best ways to support those young people in being successful. The instructional work packets, I want to be absolutely clear. Now that we have the devices and the connectivity that we need for the entire district, those instructional work packets are going away. And I know that some of our families, some of our parents have struggled with and were concerned with using the devices and having their children learn remotely. And so I would strongly urge those families to have discussions with their school leaders or with their teachers, because we've got to make a decision. Assuming that the board supports this plan, obviously, but if this plan moves forward, we'll need families to make a decision, and the instructional package won't be included there. Now, additional resources obviously would be shared with them, but we need to be absolutely clear about this, because for some, this is going to be a pivot, and it's going to require them to engage differently. We can move to the next slide. For our elementary schools and scholars, the traditional model would look like this: face-to-face instruction provided Monday through Friday. The daily schedule would be 7:30 to 2:15. And I believe the end of the day built in some programming to be a bit more flexible with scholars and meeting some of their needs around interventions and that sort of thing. We'll embed technology into the regular day. So again, the point that we made earlier, all the money and energy placed on identifying devices for all of our scholars, we'll be able to use those devices in the school. And heaven forbid we should have a snow day, inclement weather day, or something like that. We've got devices that would allow us to pivot and continue instruction. So that's that on that. We will be building into our schedules break time for scholars to distance and unmask as weather permits, to go outside and get some fresh air, and perhaps to be outside of the mask and distance themselves, because we know that, even for us as adults, sometimes you need that. And so we're acknowledging our scholars' needs, even if they were to be in the school for traditional instruction. And protocols would be designed to limit the mobility and increase distancing within the school. So within the classrooms, teachers and team members have already been modeling out and spacing out and working with the available furniture to reconsider how we set up classrooms. Teams have already been planning, our school leaders in particular have already been planning for lunch or cafeteria, lunchtime, and whether scholars would eat in the cafeteria or meals would be brought to them in their classrooms, or if the youngest scholars would go to the cafeteria and space out and eat there, just all those sorts of things. So as well as just the transitions in the hallways, so that we don't have large numbers in the hallways, creating this close proximity that is just not necessary. Those are things, though, and I want to pause here around that point. It's really important, and I know lots of folks want to know the specific details. We as a central office and as a district have provided some guidance to principals, and actually worked with principals to refine that guidance. And the team is working with, or has worked with, an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school to develop sample plans for what would happen in a specific school, right? Based on the model, whether it's traditional or hybrid, based on the size of the school, based on the entrances and exits and the layout, all those sorts of things that need to be considered with regard to distancing and transitions in the hallways and breaks outside and all those sorts of things. Those are some of the things that are built into the plans that teams are developing. We aren't developing school-specific plans and sending them out to principals and saying, hey, take this and run with this plan. This is something that has to be shared with school leaders and school leaders even, and I know some of them are working with their leadership teams and teachers within buildings so that the plans are as thoughtful as possible and take into consideration as much as possible. Yes, we've engaged with school leaders and with some representatives around the district about this before coming to you board members for approval of this plan. One, because we want to make sure that we've thought as much about all of the issues and possibilities around this before we come to you. Also, because we want to start to engage others as decision makers in this process, such that if this plan goes forward, our team members are already in process of thinking through contingencies, thinking through challenges, potential pitfalls, taking some of the practices and recommendations from other places. So just wanted to name that. We can move to the next slide. The middle schools, for our middle schools, again, if they're not selecting the virtual model, they'd select a hybrid model. And their school day would be 8 a.m. to 2:30. The goal would be to try to get them down to about 50% capacity. The hybrid model would include home instruction and school instruction. Scholars would engage with their teachers at the same time if they're in the home instruction as the teacher is teaching in school. They would be on an A-day, B-day rotation. And in order to reduce the number of scholars within the classroom, what they've devised is dividing the scholars into two cohorts, one and by last name. And so, you know, the goal would be to get perhaps A through K in cohort 1 and cohort 2, the remainder of the letters and last names. And all of that, again, to limit interactions with large numbers and to limit movement throughout the building. So that's some of the kind of mechanics around the middle school hybrid model. If we go to the next slide, you'll see a sample schedule for the middle school hybrid model. So you see here cohorts 1 and 2, last names A through K, last names L through Z. For week 1, it's fairly simple. Cohort 1, they're in school on Monday. Cohort 2 is in school, is at home on Monday. And then the next day they flip. And cohort 2 is in school. And cohort 1 is at home. And it keeps rotating A day, B day, A day, B day. And that again allows for the distancing that we want, allows for scholars to have a level of instruction in person that supports their social and emotional needs, better assist them in learning really complex skills and concepts, more practice right there with teachers in ways that they're able to demonstrate and practice, but perhaps would be challenged to do the same virtually. So that's the middle school hybrid schedule. And now looking at the high school model. For high schools, again, a hybrid model. Their schedule would be 9 until 4 p.m., 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. Again, looking to reduce the building capacity to about 50%. The face-to-face or in-person instruction would happen on A day or B day rotation. In this case, not splitting or dividing the scholars between letters of their last name, first letter of their last name, but by grade level. And so 9th and 10th graders on A day, 11th and 12th graders on B day. And the core instruction, the goal here would be to provide core instruction in mathematics and English or language arts, in science and social studies. That core instruction would happen while the scholars are in person, are learning in person. And so the next slide shares a sample schedule for this. And so you see our ninth graders, 9th and 10th graders on the left side of this table. If we were to start, and we didn't adjust the dates here, I apologize for that. But if we were to start on the 5th with this rotating schedule, then the A day for 9th and 10th graders would mean they'd be in school, while on the 5th, the A day for 11th and 12th graders would mean they'd be at home. And then you see B day on the next day. That means that the 9th and 10th graders would be at home, while the 10th and 11th graders would be in school, and they just continue to rotate. There's a note here about, and I know the team is looking for, because of the schedule in high school, that's it's a fairly long day, and we want to make sure that our scholars have opportunities to have their individualized needs met, or interventions, or additional supports, completing assignments, study hall sorts of things. Some of the online tools that we utilize for credit recovery and on and on. The team is implementing or wanting to implement an asynchronous Wednesday that would allow for a bit of that instruction to happen on Wednesday. So they're still learning, they're still on the schedule as previously described, but scholars would be learning without direct instruction from the scholars, synchronous instruction from the teachers. They would be learning asynchronously wherever they happen to be on Wednesday. And so in this case, Wednesday being the 7th, the 9th and 10th graders would be in school. And so their asynchronous day would be in school, learning and being supported as they needed. And then the 11th and 12th graders, again, in this example, based on the schedule, would be home learning asynchronously. I'm gonna move on to the next slide. Athletics. So part of our plan and thinking through kind of where we go next, and we know that many of our scholars were really bummed, and many of our families and coaches and community members were really bummed about us not providing the athletic activities and outlets for scholars in this first quarter or first semester. And we understand that. We understand that for a lot of our scholars, it makes or breaks their learning engagement. And so we do just want to acknowledge that we're preparing to move back into the athletic and extracurricular offerings, and that they would be available to scholars, whether they were virtual or hybrid. We assume that likely many families would, if they elected virtual learning mode, that they probably wouldn't elect to have their scholars engage in athletics or extracurriculars, but it's open to them. We don't want to summarily dismiss those scholars from those opportunities. Again, this is something that we know to be very important for our scholars' development. And we've tried to be very thoughtful about some of the protocols that we've utilized to help to keep folks safe, both in practice and rehearsal for band or choir or what have you, but also in participation of athletic events or concerts or any of that sort of thing, and thinking through participation limits and creating some spacing with seating. Masks being required unless they're engaged in the activity itself, the sport or the singing or playing or what have you. Again, utilizing some of the protocols that we've already discussed around sanitation and that, and even some thinking around concessions should we move forward with athletics. And so just wanted to name that that's something that we've given lots of thought to, and that we're committed to providing some experiences for young people. Next slide, yeah. So we mentioned this earlier, just want to make sure that we stress to families the importance of selecting an option. You know, we obviously we're hoping and bringing this to the board because we believe this is the right thing to do at this, well, or would be the right thing to do for the start in January or for the second semester. Again, I'll stress that, you know, we have been and will continue to monitor data and to make any pivots or delays that we might need to make, just as we did at the start of this fall of this school year. However, what we're presenting to you is our thinking around and our belief around the best options for meeting the varied needs within our district in families and scholars. And so again, we just want to encourage all of the families to please go to our website. You can go to the next slide. Go to our website and keep going. I'll come back to this. Keep going. Keep going. Oh, geez. Okay. Thought I had a slide up. You can go back. Thought I had a slide sharing some of the, there it is. Yeah. Just want to make sure that folks know where to go on our website in order to make your selection for a smart restart. Again, and this is from the at the top of the you know, the front page or the home page on our website. You can look for the button right up there at the top, Smart Restart, and click that, and it'll take you to our plan and all the information that you need there. Okay, I do want to go back to the PPE piece. All right. So before I conclude, and I know I've shared a lot and definitely want to get some questions from you board members and engage in some discussion. We understand that we have not always delivered with excellence in terms of our facilities and supplies throughout the district. And so I trust that that's where some of the feedback that we've gotten is coming from. I am also very clear that none of this is beyond our capacity to deliver with excellence. We want to be much clearer about what we mean when we talk about PPE, personal protective equipment, in our inventory. And so the listing is here: washable masks for adults and for young people, disposable masks. And so the washable masks would be given to the individuals to wear and to, you know, launder and to wear again. If we happen to have anyone who shows up without a mask, we will have masks, disposable masks available to them. The KN95 masks for those who might need those in particular, given the kind of the strength of those masks. Face shields, and I believe you may have seen that on the video earlier. For our youngest scholars, we actually do need to be able to see them as they enunciate, and they need to see us as we enunciate words and sounds. And so there may be times when we need to put them in the face shields as opposed to the masks themselves. And so those would be available. As well, these latex gloves and the nitrile gloves, depending on who's using them and for what use. So those are already in our inventory. In addition to the PPE, we've got inventory of disinfecting supplies. Let's move to the next slide. sanitizing and cleaning supplies. A long list here and other equipment. So the contactless thermometers, again, you've seen these, the foggers, multiple foggers in a school with our transportation department and our offices. And you saw a demonstration of how those would be utilized throughout the day, not just at the end of the day. And so lots of work and thinking and kind of planning that's gone into when would they be utilized, on what, how do you use them? And our team has gone through that. These touchless hand sanitizer stations, we will promote and provide opportunities for hand washing, but we'll also have lots of hand sanitizer all around buildings. One of the things, as I visited some of our peers in a neighboring district, I visited an elementary, a middle, and a high school. In each of them, you couldn't go but a few steps and bump into some hand sanitizer or a sanitizer station, either on a table or the stand or station. So that's something that, just that visual was helpful to see. That's almost overkill, but to have it at the ready. Disinfectant wipes for our teachers and for scholars to utilize in their spaces, on their desks, on anywhere that they would be sitting, on their chairs and that sort of thing. Disinfectant spray, antibacterial hand soap, the cleaning wipes, the hydrogen peroxide based cleaner, all of these things that our team has taken the time to get smarter about what are the best supplies to utilize in a school, especially with young people and with our team members in the building. We want to be mindful of any fumes and that sort of thing. So these are the items that we've researched and that are known to be best used in schools, as well as this neutral disinfectant and the other disinfectant. So again, just wanted to name these here. You saw some of this in the video. Our teams have developed a starter packet. I believe Mr. Albright mentioned that in the video as well. A starter kit for schools that where schools don't have to order the first set of supplies and PPE. It'll just be sent to them. That was something that we had been talking about over the summer, and it just occurred to us, why should schools have to order this? And so we have the starter kits, and those will be in schools in the next couple of weeks. So we're excited about that. I want to pause here. Again, I know I've said a lot, and I just want to ask or see what questions you have and engage in some dialogue about this Smart Restart plan.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Board members, are there any questions? I have a few questions. Let's see, I had quite a few. First of all, the cleaning video was great. It was good to see what the processes would look like. Do we know how long these starter kits will last? How long are we setting schools up before they have to order?
That's a great question. I actually don't know. I'll see if either Mr. Albright or Ms. Robinson has a sense of how long those items would last. I'm assuming a good few months, but I'll see if they have a more accurate answer.
Mr. Albright is unmuted. Let's see.
Yes, if I could. We are looking for between 30 and 60 days. Again, it's going to depend on the number of pupils that are using hand sanitizer in the individual classrooms, the amount of motion that takes place. So each time they leave their desk, they're required to disinfect. So those kind of things are going to be a little uncertain to start with, but that's kind of the gauge that we're using at this point.
Thank you. My next question, if board members, if you'll allow, is if I were a teacher, of course I'm not, COVID has taught me that I'm not, and I had concerns about what was going to go on specific to my building, what should I do?
I appreciate the question. As I mentioned earlier, we as a district have, I think each of us, and I know each of us has gotten smarter about just living in this pandemic and educating and operating in the pandemic. And so we've amassed a bit of knowledge and kind of best practices with regard to that, things that we've learned from our own experiences and from other districts and from others around the country. However, there's a lot of the planning and the specific decision-making that must be made at the local school level, simply because buildings are laid out differently, the staffing capacity could be different and all those sorts of things. And so specific concerns about or questions about bathroom practices or schedules or cafeteria or lunch schedules and perhaps even breaks and that sort of thing. Those are things that, those are questions and discussions that'll be had with school leaders as those decisions will be made on a school by school basis. Our expectation is that the schools will determine and will develop a schedule for lunches, just as they would any other time. That's always an expectation. Our expectation is that schools will develop protocols and procedures around restroom use, just as they would if we were all in school outside of a pandemic. Our expectation is that schools would develop and identify times for young people to go out and burn off some energy, especially our youngest, but our older scholars as well, just to kind of be outside of the hardcore focused learning mode, and that's always the expectation. So it's the expectation in this case as well, along with some of the guidance that we provide to them. And so those are just a few of the kinds of things that again, that school-based leaders and their teams will be determining, and that we wouldn't dare try to determine from central office.
Thank you. And my last question is, in terms of teachers, virtual and in-school teachers are separate groups of teachers. There will be a group of virtual teachers and a group of in-school teachers. Is that correct?
Our goal is to identify a team of teachers, and this is especially for elementary, but a team of teachers that would support virtual learners kind of by region of the city, north, south, maybe central. Again, it depends on the numbers and the needs there. For our hybrid, our teachers teaching in secondary schools and middle and high schools, it'll be a bit more difficult to create whole teams for virtual and whole teams for in-person slash hybrid in school, hybrid at home. And so those teachers will likely continue to teach their group of scholars in, call it sixth grade mathematics, some of them at a distance, some of them in front of them. But even that, again, as the numbers shake out, we may find ourselves in a situation where you've got a couple of teams of teachers on sixth grade in a middle school, and perhaps one team can take the virtual scholars who are learning, and then the other team take scholars who are learning in person. That kind of flexibility we want to allow for, and I know Dr. Murray and the middle school principals have had some discussions around that. We want to kind of manage expectations, though. They'll likely be teaching both the virtual and in person. And so, we're continuing to look at some of the technology that they might need to better support that, additional cameras or what have you.
Thank you. Board members, questions?
I have, President Johnson, I have a two-part question. First part of it, is there a teacher shortage in the district presently?
So if you had asked me the question, do we have any vacancies? Yes, we have some vacancies. And if by vacancies we mean a teacher shortage, then yes. I am also confident that across the board, we've been able to pivot and provide for the instruction in the virtual mode, at least, for all of our scholars in all of our schools.
Okay, second part question. If there is a COVID breakout, I guess I would say, what is the plan for providing coverage for these teachers' classes?
Great question. So a couple of things in response to that. So we do still have our our contract with Kelly Services. So yes, we do have that as a kind of fallback. But again, because we're now one-to-one, or have the devices to be one-to-one, one device per scholar, learning can continue with scholars being at home. And so if we're ever at a place where we don't have the staffing to manage instruction in the building, then we'd have to make a decision around the closure of the building. And kind of backing up even from that, because there were kind of a couple of things in your question there. With regard to outbreaks, we would quarantine if there's an outbreak in a particular space that people are connected. And so if there are in a sixth grade or in a fifth grade classroom, if there are 3 or more scholars who have tested positive for COVID, or 3 or more people in the room, right, including a teacher, then that would be considered an outbreak, and at least that classroom would be quarantined. And actually, we quarantine that classroom if there's one case that's noted, and folks have been in the classroom. Let's say half the 25 scholars are there in person for learning. All of the 12 or 13 of them would be quarantining, depending on just kind of the setup in the room and that sort of thing. But I'm walking through that because those decisions around quarantining or school closure would hinge on the cases, positive cases, and the close proximity. And so if we get to a place where there's either enough positive cases or close proximity to positive cases where we need to quarantine, then we'll pivot the learning to virtual, either for that classroom, for several classrooms, a school, or for more if ever we need to do that. And so again, with the technology, we've got the options to support learning outside of the classroom.
What would be the number of classrooms that you would be looking at to close the school, the entire school?
Sure. So in a smaller, in an elementary, typically we're looking at so three outbreaks is kind of the number where you start to engage with, you've been engaging with the health officials, but with 3 outbreaks, that's when you would likely look at a school closure. I'm hesitating a bit because it's not you got 3 outbreaks and then that's it, close it down. It's in discussion with the health officials, and through the contact tracing that you start to determine, Were they connected? Were those cases connected in any way? And that further informs the decision. But somewhere around three outbreaks is where you start to look at a school closure. And again, an outbreak is 3 connected cases, just to be clear.
Any other questions, board members?
Yes, I have a question. I have a question about like what would be like the processes or protocols for students that do come to school or are sent to school ill, as far as keeping them away from the other students and from teachers or whatever, as far as quarantining in the building the day of and things like that, or even on the buses for that matter.
Yes, and I apologize. We actually didn't go over all of the protocols that we shared earlier in the year as we were preparing for the start of this school year. But one of the protocols has to do with temperature checks for all of our scholars, and that's temperature checks before they get on buses and temperature checks before they either walk in or get dropped off to enter the building. Temperature checks for all, well, for all people, but for scholars, all scholars in particular. And so with those temperature checks or with any other symptoms that are visible at the time, scholars are identified and placed in a, to the extent possible, isolation on the bus. If there's an elevated temperature when they're there at the bus stop, and if they are walkers or get dropped off and there's an elevated temperature, there's an isolation room where they're placed, and then check the temperature again, or if they're complaining of feeling ill or coughing or any of those sorts of things, any of the symptoms that are visible, are identifiable. And then contact with families to come and get them immediately, working with families to make that possible, and just continuing to isolate them. Every school would be outfitted with an isolation room that's one that would allow for that kind of separation from other scholars. The other piece, though, is just to be as proactive as possible with families to say, if there's anything, a cough, elevated temperature, some of the other symptoms, diarrhea, loss of taste, smell, any of those sorts of things, that families just work with us and just out of an abundance of caution and keep scholars home. It's not an absolute, but frankly, nor is it with the adults, right? So there's a bit of trust that we're having with even the team members, that if you're not feeling well, we really do need you to name that and take precautions for all of us. And if you happen to notice that someone else on the team has something, that's part of the role that we've got to play as members of the community to support one another and keeping one another safe. Other questions that board members may have, or I'll take any reactions, any of it.
Madam President, this is Figures.
Yes, sir.
Honorable Superintendent, you open with a data-driven sentence, and I agree with it, and that was 79% average daily attendance. That is alarming, and I agree with you 100%. You also follow that with another sentence that 68% of the pre-K need some sort of intervention. That is also significant. But you also mentioned earlier that there's a cadre of people that are gonna, and it gave me the impression that this cadre of teachers is gonna be assisting people with this virtual. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yes, sir. So the plan, again, this all depends on the numbers. It depends on the needs in terms of scholars and families who select virtual, but as it stands, a good 40, call it 46, yeah, I guess about average 46% of our scholars, of those who've responded and made a selection, are looking for a virtual option. And so about, we would need teachers to support 46% of our scholars in this. I'm sorry, I have it backwards. It's the 56 or so percent. We would need teachers to support their learning in this virtual mode. And so the plan, again, it really depends on how this shakes out. We appreciate that folks named their selection, and if this holds true, then about 56% of our teachers, we would need them available and plugged in and ready to support scholars across grade levels and subject areas in the virtual mode. And while it likely will not be absolutely clean, to the extent that we can identify teachers to teach virtually all day, every day, build relationships with scholars, continue to increase their capacity in virtual instruction, and really just become expert in virtual instruction, it's better, I think, for everyone to be able to separate that kind of mode of instruction from those who would be teaching in person. It's likely not going to be that clean. As I noted earlier, I know for the hybrid model, it'll be a little messier because for middle school in particular, you've got half of the scholars from a particular classroom, call it 7th grade mathematics. You've got half of them in school one day, half of them in school the next day. And so, the ability to separate that out would be a little trickier, but that's the goal that the team is working through. And as we get more of the numbers, we can actually identify the amount of teachers needed for this subject, for this grade level, et cetera, in this region of town, And one of the things that I don't believe I mentioned this earlier, but one of the things that we've done with staff members as we've provided a process for those who will require an accommodation, the basic accommodations that are required for any job for folks with a particular disability or challenge. In addition to that request, teachers and staff members are also, we've asked them if they have a preference, excuse me, for teaching virtually. Not that we'll be able to accommodate everyone's preference, but to the extent that there is someone who has a preference for doing so, and we need that person's skill sets and experience and licensure to cover a number of classes, that just works out for everyone. It's going to be a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, frankly. And it's something that we'll have to continue to work through just to get the right mix of scholars and families who are selecting virtual mode and teachers and staff members to support those in the virtual mode. I hope I answered the question.
Were you finished, Mr. Figures?
Yes, ma'am. He gave me some more insight on that. It sounded exciting, really, but it was alarming. The average daily attendance, that just chokes me.
Thank you. Board members, okay, now we have Dr. Sivak. Hold on, let me mute myself.
Thanks, Attorney Johnson. Dr. Green, I also wanted to just react to that point that was made about the virtual learners and the potential to have a group of teachers that are just teaching virtual. My concern, I don't have a concern with the approach. I do have a concern that that information wasn't shared with parents in making the selection of going virtual or hybrid. And what I mean by that is the reality is our children have been learning virtually for a semester, and there is a relationship there. And if it had, and so, you know, so for example, our family chose virtual, it's working for us. But if we had seen in the information that our child was at risk of not having their teacher that they've had this semester, that all things being equal, they would have, and I'm not talking about retirements or, you know, things of that nature, then we may have thought differently. And so I want to, so it sounds though like at the middle school and high school level, that's likely not going to happen. However, I do think if that is a potential, we need to communicate that.
Understood. And I should say, I mean, it's part of the plan. It's part of what we're working to deliver on. There's a question mark just on, you know, how clean we'll be able to separate out and do any of that. And frankly, part of the rationale behind it, and your point is very well taken and understood, and that's something that we absolutely will move on communicating more broadly. I will share that, you know, this is something that, as we're hearing from teachers and from school leaders, something that we believe would help to kind of lessen the load for teachers.
Will there be the possibility then, will parents learn, will we find out if children are moved, and if with that additional information, I know this locks in a decision, with the additional information, will parents be given the option to switch their choice prior to the start of the semester?
So obviously we want to be as flexible as possible. I won't say that we won't allow for a change. We likely want to engage in some conversation. You know, what's the concern? Is there anything that, you know, any additional information that we can provide that might help, et cetera. So let me go back to the team and figure out exactly how much more communication around that particular piece we can provide, and how much more clarity in the jigsaw making, the puzzle making we can provide, so that we're not just talking in the abstract, but we've got a clearer sense of, hey, with this number of scholars, we need these teachers. This is what we're able to lift up, or folks are able to continue steady state and teach, you know, the scholars in front of them. That's something that we will commit to sharing more on in the coming week.
Thanks a lot.
And it absolutely helps to have 13,000+ folks to have indicated their needs. But, you know, behind these kind of aggregate numbers are the needs per school, per grade level, per subject, and all of that we'll have to consider. And those absolutely start to push on kind of class sizes and some of those issues. Other questions, board members?
I'd just like to say, to add to what Mr. Sivak said also, is I guess, I don't know, it's about the no packets at all will be provided. No, you know, learning packets, that everything, once they choose virtual, it is completely virtual. no packets will be provided even at the elementary level.
So to clarify for that, the virtual, the learning will happen largely using the virtual mode. We will provide some additional resources for scholars, but the instructional packets as we've used them previously, where you complete the packet and you submit those for a grade and get another packet or get some feedback on those, and that is going away. So I should have been clearer and more specific in what I was saying about those. Absolutely, as teachers always do, we'll send home additional resources that scholars can use to learn. But those packets won't be the primary mode for scholars to submit their work to get to have it graded or get feedback on their work. Or to be used for attendance and all those things that we've had to use packets for in the past. That's more of the case. Does that answer the question? Okay.
So the teacher assignments, will that be made in the building or will that be made somewhere else? Who will make those decisions in terms of who teaches?
So for those who are seeking to work virtually or teach virtually and want to support a broader kind of teacher team to support scholars, the assistant superintendents will work with human resources, of course, and with school leaders to kind of, again, connect the dots on that. And the principals will continue to assign the teachers in their buildings to support in their buildings, as they typically do.
Okay, and my last question is, after the vote, what should parents of the community expect next in terms of next steps?
Yeah, so first and foremost, anyone, there's another 7,000, maybe close to a third, a little more than a third of our scholars for whom we don't know what they would be selecting. And so we need them to log on and make a selection. So that's first and foremost. We've gotten some questions here about teacher assignments and that sort of thing that we know that we've got to go back and put some more clarity around exactly what does that look like based on the numbers of scholars and what they've elected for their learning experience. And so that's something that folks should just look for from us over the next couple of weeks, and certainly before we go out for the winter break. Our teams will continue to ensure that the school specific plans are developed. So the samples have been created, and want to make sure that each and every school has thought through their lunch cycles and schedules and all that sort of thing. Assignments for staff in terms of who's going to be on duty with the thermometers and on and on and on, all of that sort of thing. Ensuring that they've got their PPE, their starter kit for PPE and supplies and that. And so teams will be continuing that sort of work. And then I know school-based teams will be communicating with scholars and families over the next couple of weeks, just as they need to continue with their productivity, their assignments, and all those sorts of things. So school is continuing. Want to make sure that we don't lose sight of that in this time that scholars are learning, but also just kind of getting clearer on, and I believe we've got another benchmark assessment coming up. And so just getting clearer on what the academic needs are of our scholars, such that the time after winter break, we're prepared to pivot and meet those needs. We will figure out some perhaps a particular day, and I'll ask my team to work with me to give some thought to, a particular day where parents should go and look for an updated something. Just know that there will be some kind of an update on, you name it, teacher assignments, more on the data that we're collecting around selections, et cetera, et cetera. And so we'll figure that out and assign that and get that started so that folks can get in a regular cadence of receiving some kind of an update with regard to this. For the questions that individual teachers have, that parents have about their school and what they can expect, and all those sorts of things. I know we've got some schools that have been under construction, and so all those sorts of things. Please do reach out to your school leaders. If they don't have the specific answer to that question, and they will partner with others from central office to support and give responses to you. But if you go through your school leader, we can ensure, one, that we've got those questions logged. And we can ensure that the answers are not skipping over our school leaders or staff members to parents, because they might would need that information as well. So just want to ask parents to definitely, if you've got questions or concerns or anything that you want to funnel through your school principals, then please do that. I've got a couple of last comments too. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so again, I've shared a lot. We've had a lot of discussion here. There's been a bit of discussion kind of leading up to this point. As we've shared previously, we're trying to meet the needs of a district of this size, and with the diversity that we have, it just requires that we gather data. It's already been established that no one model works for all scholars or families. That's been established. That is a fact. It was a fact when we were in the traditional model. There are scholars who struggled. There are scholars who are struggling now, and families who are struggling now. So that's just a fact. What we need to know now is what parents intend to do. So I'm sure there are some who will hear about the supplies and disinfecting protocols and other practices and that we'll employ, and those things will make a difference in their selection, either if they've already been in the system or if they haven't yet made a selection. And I'm also quite confident that those who really need one option or the other have pretty much settled on that. For those who need to be in school, they've pretty much settled on that, and those who feel safe only with virtual are largely there. For as much as we're hearing folks demanding for more details about our plans, just want to reiterate that some of that, a good bit of that, will be determined at the school level. We worked with school leaders to craft those sample plans that I talked about and to guide others in their decision making. We'll continue to partner with our school leaders. They're not just out on an island by themselves, but they do have a bit of decision-making authority in terms of some of the protocols there in the building that could provide for some flexibility, but also keep with the guidance that we provided to them. And so just want to be real clear that we've been in touch with our school leaders. I've been engaging with representatives from across the district, certainly not everyone in the district, but with representatives from across the district to better understand the challenges and the opportunities. And so we do feel like we've accounted for much of that, and those things that we've not yet accounted for, that we've allowed ourselves some time and space to continue to build on that and to get clearer about it. We're proud of the work that our educators and scholars and parents and community members have done to continue teaching and learning in Jackson. Many have done amazing work in getting smarter about the use of technology, building systems and procedures for their classrooms and for schools to recreate engaging learning environments. And for many of our scholars, this seems to be working. As I've said many times already. In fact, I'm eager to continue this thinking about how we do this more how we continue this virtual learning and some of the things that we've implemented during this time. Unfortunately, it's not working for all scholars. And so we've talked about average daily attendance. We've talked about our youngest scholars. We've talked about those who have pronounced social and emotional needs, or maybe not even pronounced, but underlying social and emotional needs that are just really difficult to address in a virtual setting. So I'm sharing this because one of the things that I've heard was feedback on, this seems like a foregone conclusion. Yes, I'm bringing to the board, we as a team are bringing to the board a plan that we've thought a great deal on, that we've considered and that we've talked with our peers and around the state and other places. And we're convicted that this is based on equity and the needs of our scholars and families, which is the reason why we exist, that this is what we need to do. Go back to a plan that allows for options. And so I'll conclude with that, board members. I appreciate the questions that you've asked. Hope that we've been able to articulate a fair amount of the planning and as well as some of the work that we know we need to continue to do just to be ready for when scholars return, if they're to return. With that, I'll end.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Board members, is there a motion to approve information action item A, the approval of the Smart Restart Plan?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Seeback has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? There being none, the motion is approved. Next on the agenda, we have Ms. Mason. Oh, she's on. Oh, you're on mute. I don't even see you. Let's see. Ms. Mason? Okay, good. Still not working.
Can we come back to her?
Yes. All right, we're going to move on to Ms. Miller.
Thank you, President Johnson, Dr. Green, members of the board. I present for your approval tonight a site evaluation easement agreement with the Hinds County Board of Supervisors for 16 section property located on McDowell Road in Jackson. Several months ago, the Board of Supervisors representatives approached administrators, and they're interested in a parcel of about 10 plus or minus acres on McDowell Road, which is right down the street, basically from the Henley Young Juvenile Justice Center, to evaluate that land for a possible county project. We are presenting this for your approval tonight. The county has asked for an 18-month easement agreement in which they would evaluate the property to see if it is suitable for their project, their proposed project. And then if it is, we hope that we will then enter into a long-term lease agreement for that property. The county has agreed. We've worked with the Secretary of State's office because this is a little bit different for us than a regular 16 section lease agreement, but the county has agreed to pay the district about $1,200 an acre or $12,000 for this 18-month period. And at the time, as I said, if the project, if the land is suitable for their use, then we would enter into a long-term lease agreement for the use of that property.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Board members, are there any questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve information action item C?
So moved.
So moved.
Dr. Sivak has moved. Ms. Hilliard, am I taking that as a second?
Yes.
Ms. Hilliard is seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? There being none, the motion is approved.
Thank you.
So Ms. Mason, is it fixed?
Yeah, I'm recommending that we purchase Zoom, even though I couldn't unmute my Zoom. I think that's my computer more than Zoom. So sorry about that. There's only so much technology in the world, I guess, on any given day. Okay, good evening again. We are recommending the board to approve the master services agreement for Zoom communications to provide video conferencing services for all our students and staff for school year 2021.
Thank you, Ms. Mason. Board members, are there any questions or comments? If there's no question, if there are no questions, is there a motion to approve information action item B?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Sivak has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? There being none, the motion is approved. Now, board members, we are moving on to the consent agenda item finance. All of the consent agenda items have been reviewed by the board previously. We've had an opportunity to ask questions of the administration. Are there any other questions? If no other questions, board members, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda finance?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Luckett has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? There being none, the motion is approved. Thank you. Now, board members, we've come to the consent agenda items personnel. All of the consent agenda items have been reviewed by the board previously. We've had an opportunity to ask questions of the administration. Are there any further questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda personnel?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Luckett has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? There being none, the motion is approved. Is there a consideration to hold executive session? There is a consideration to hold executive session, board members. Is there a motion to close the meeting so that we can consider the need to go into executive session?
I so move, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Figurs. Mr. Figurs has moved and Dr. Luckett has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? There being none, the motion is approved. This meeting is now closed. All right, board members, it's been a long night. We've got a lot of good work accomplished tonight. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Ms.
Second.
Hilliard has moved. Dr. Luckett is seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? There being none, the motion is approved and the meeting is now over. Thank you.
Board members, thank you.